Welcome to our review of the Articles of Confederation. As you know, we were fighting the Revolutionary War for many different reasons. These reasons include the Stamp Act, the Coercive Acts, the Tea Act, the Proclamation Line, which you can see is this dotted red line at the western boundary of the colonies. This was put in place so that the British government could control where the colonists were moving. Obviously, this was not something the colonists agreed with. The Quartering Act and the Townshend Acts. And the Townshend Acts were taxes on imports that were seen as by the British government as external taxes, as opposed to an internal tax like a Stamp Act tax. However, the colonists just saw this as another added tax. The Continental Congress's demands for political rights. Massachusetts and Virginia requested a meeting of delegates from all of the colonies to develop a joint statement of concern that would then be sent to the king. Everyone showed up but Georgia, which we'll see was a problem later on. This becomes the first Continental Congress, and this will be the authors of the Articles of Confederation. The Articles themselves did have some issues. First of all, they needed unanimous approval. Obviously, that was not possible because of Georgia's unwillingness to meet with them, but also because Rhode Island became Rogue Island was the nickname, and they were going rogue. They wanted no part of this, and so unanimous approval to change or adopt the Articles obviously was going to be problematic. It did emphasize the sovereignty of the individual states versus a collective arrangement of a country. This is a confederation, that's why it's known as the Articles of Confederation. And a confederation is a union of independent states in which states retain its sovereignty, rights, and power, and is not by their agreement expressly delegated to a central governing body. So they have more power than the federal government does. States retain ultimate authority over commerce. There's not one government regulating the trade between the states. Obviously, you can see this is problematic, and it's also going to cause a detrimental effect to the growth of the potential economy. Each state is issuing their own money, also problematic. If you know that we live close to the Pennsylvania border, if they had different currency, it would be impossible to trade with them, or very difficult to trade with them, because not only do you not have that currency to necessarily give them change in, but they may not accept it because they seem it as unusable or has no value. Speaking of value, they have no idea what the value of that dollar would be. There was a unicameral legislature. Uni means one, like a unicycle is one wheel. Cameral means house, so it's one house legislature. This was problematic because the big states felt like they had more population, so they should have more say. And the small states thought, well, we should be equal in this, and just because you have more people living there doesn't mean you should have more say in the government. And as you know, that will be fixed later on. The federal government could not tax the states nor ask for military support. This really hamstrung the federal government because in order for the federal government to function, it needs to collect taxes. That's how they pay their bills. They also could not ask for military support, which meant that if we were invaded, they had no way to defend us. Plus, the states felt like they had to defend themselves as a means of aggression, against aggression from other states if that was a potential conflict. One thing that really did work for the Articles of Confederation was the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. And this is going to come into place, or put into place, a procedure to add Western territories. And we don't oftentimes think of this territory as the Northwest Territory. We oftentimes think of the state of Washington or the state of Oregon. However, at the time, this was Northwest, because if you remember, the Proclamation Line came right down here, and that's where the colonies were. All right, so we have some signs of trouble. Shays' Rebellion was a situation where you have war veterans who fought for the independence of this country and the freedom for people to be able to live the way that they want to live and not under the perceived British government that was oppressive. And the problem was the farmers got back and they couldn't pay their legal debts and they were losing their farms, and they felt like if we took all this time off and we fought for the independence of this country, we should be rewarded, we should be paid, and we should not be losing our farms. And George Washington comes in and he is able to settle them down and get them to realize that, you know, he's kind of in the same situation and that we can get through this together. But it did show that the federal government did not have the power to put down a rebellion. I want to give you an example of an AP question. Under the Articles of Confederation, which of the following is true? Congress could not tax the states directly. The executive branch exercised more power than Congress. Congress was a unicameral body. States were represented in Congress proportionally according to the population. And then you need to choose which two of those are correct. And I'd like you to pause the video and find out and figure out which one you think is correct. and then come back and I will give you the answer. Hopefully you paused the video and then you realized that choice B is correct. Congress could not tax the states directly, and Congress was a unicameral body. So that's our review of the Articles of Confederation. Make sure that you take, I think there's 4 questions or 5 questions on the quiz that is right below this link in Moodle, and make sure that you have that done by Sunday night at 11:59. Thank you.